Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the show. Hope everybody is doing well. It is 11 p.m. here in Scotland. I realized about 20 minutes ago, thank you, Michael Neighbor, that you guys started your daylight saving time. Of course, I always forget that you guys start before we do. So, so there we go. So, we have this wee period of I think of about a week, maybe 2 weeks, where I shift my show back an hour to start at 11 p.m. UK time, and that helps out the folks that are over in places like Germany and France and Switzerland. I know that we get some viewers from there for this show, so it helps them out. It means they're not having to stay up until like 1 a.m. And then waiting for the show, and then of course the show finishes at 2 a.m. for them. So that's a late night for folks in Europe, and it's late enough for me, but because I finish at 1 a.m. effectively. But of course, this period we shift the show back an hour. I still advertise it at 6 p.m. Central, and it always stays at 6 p.m. Central, regardless of. I'm getting notifications galore here. Regardless of which side of the pond we're on and who has daylight savings time and who doesn't, I'm always going to be starting it at 6 p.m. Central. So if that's 6 p.m. daylight saving time or 6 p.m. standard time, it's always going to start at 6 p.m. every time. So that basically the only person that has to shift anything is me. I am the one that has to move my show back an hour, then move it forward an hour. Okay, so that's how it kind of has worked historically, and I guess I've never really maybe properly explained it. So just so you know, when you see my ads go up and it says 6 p.m. Central, it'll always be 6 p.m. Central, whether that's daylight savings time or standard time. All right, so hopefully everybody is on the same page, because there will be some periods where that means that my show is now early in the UK, and sometimes it means that it's just the regular time of midnight. So I have to be a little bit mindful of when that changes and when that doesn't change. So that's on me. I just have to keep an eye on you guys and daylight saving time, and when we start daylight saving time here in the UK. So the other thing I wanted to point out was thanks to an update from OBS, I have figured out how I can actually have my theme tune music play without me having to start it myself, which is what I have been doing. I've just had like an audio file open on my desktop, and I just hit play, and that's played the theme tune at the start and at the end. And I've normally had to do that myself, but I've worked out a way in OBS to be able to play it, and I played it tonight. This for the first time. Now, the interesting thing about this is that I can't hear it. I have to watch the peak meter in OBS, and basically I am hoping that you guys heard it tonight, and you weren't just kind of hearing a lot of nothing, and then I suddenly appear and speak. So please do let me know if you heard the theme tune tonight. I did some test recordings, and certainly on the test recordings you could hear it. So I just want to be sure that you guys are actually getting that. If you guys are getting that, then excellent. This works, and I can use this method instead of the old method of having to generate the theme tune myself. So please do post in the chat here if you heard my startup theme tune music. If you didn't, then also please say so. I'd appreciate that. So we've got 11 people here. I'm not expecting a massive crowd, because daylight savings time has just started, so some people might actually turn up an hour late. So Bobby said yes, he heard it, and Just Bob says yes, heard it, it was fine. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. So I'll be playing it again at the end of the show. One thing I have noticed is that with transitions between one scene and another, I have these nice pretty fade outs and crossfades and that kind of thing. It does seem to mess up the start of the audio. It doesn't like the crossfade. I don't know why. That's something I maybe need to talk to Jonny Gibe about and see if he can help me work out a way around that. But certainly at the moment, that's kind of been my... Ooh, crap, I just clipped my mic. Sorry about that. That's been my experience with it, is that it kind of... it goes a little bit funky at the very start of the theme tune. So I apologize in advance for that. All right, so what are we doing tonight? Normally I kind of have something where I have a talking point, or it's sometimes we just do a Q&A for the whole night. Well, no, not for the whole night, for the whole show, I should say, not for the whole night. But tonight we're going to do something very different, and I don't think I've done this in about 2 years. And that is, we are going to, or rather I am going to create a piece of music from scratch right in front of you guys. I have no idea what the piece of music is going to sound like. I'm improvising this. And basically, I just want to show you guys, and hopefully it'll be educational for you, my workflow for getting a song recorded. Now, oftentimes, and certainly if you have purchased my songwriting course, for my beginner songwriting course, which you can go over to my website and go and get if you're interested in that kind of thing. Normally, you kind of don't really see the actual process of how I actually go about it, because I would be shooting like 5 or 6 hours worth of video, and then it would take me another 13 hours to edit that down to something that's manageable. And, you know, that would be awkward and would be very, very time consuming. So we're just going to come up with a little something of a piece of music here. And as I say, this is a completely blank piece of paper. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. And maybe you guys can suggest some things along the way, and we can make this a little bit more interactive. That might be quite cool. Yeah, something interactive might be quite good. So what do we have at our disposal? We have my ancient Yamaha QS300 workstation keyboard. This guy is 28 years old and still works beautifully, which is amazing. I used to take this out on the road quite a bit, but I can't do that anymore because the only thing that works on this now is the MIDI. The audio outputs on this guy are shot. They just don't work anymore. You don't get anything apart from... And who wants to hear that at a gig, right? So, yeah, so the audio outputs don't work, and the little... Believe it or not, it has a little 3.5-inch floppy drive in here. That doesn't work either. All it does is just whine. It just goes... And that's all it does. It doesn't read discs anymore, which is a shame because I have a box. It's like a shoebox filled with discs, full of backing tracks and pieces of music that I wrote using this, because it has a sequencer on board, a 16-track sequencer on board, and some pretty decent sounds. If you're into 1990s sounds, they are kind of pretty decent. Waveform Labs is here, and I think you are new to my show, so welcome. He says hi. I think it's a he. I'm assuming he. I could be wrong. If you're a she, then please accept my apologies. And or if you're if you identify as any other gender, then I apologize. Please do let me know how you'd like to be addressed, and I can do that. No problem. Checking in to see what happens here. Well, this is my Sunday night live show, and usually we have a talking point, a discussion point, and then that is followed by a section of Q&A. And we're still going to do the Q&A. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off by starting to create this piece of music, and we may carry this over a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll kind of see how we go with it and see if you guys are enjoying it. If you guys are enjoying it, then we'll carry on with it over a couple of weeks. But if you guys are not really getting anything out of it, then that's fine. We'll put that to one side and we'll go back to what we normally do. I have no problem with doing that. So that's what normally happens here. So the Q&A section is kind of songwriting, mixing, mastering, recording, music theory, music history. I cover all of those subjects. I'm a qualified music educator. I have a degree in music and audio production, and I have a postgraduate degree in music education. And I am a music historian and everything like that as well, and musicologist. I do a lot of things. I have my fingers in many, many pies because I'm a greedy git. Mike Neighbor is here. He says, that's funny. I thought it was my live show. Yeah. Well, it nearly was, because it was you that reminded me about the daylight saving time stuff. So I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so let's get into this before we get too far down the road and we lose what few people we have here tonight. Normally we gather maybe 25, 26 people we have had. Certainly the last couple of shows we've had 25 as our peak attendance. I would love to grow that up to 50. I would love to be able to get 50 regular viewers to this show. That would be absolutely awesome. And I'm going to need your help for that. So if this show is valuable to you, then please do tell other folk about it and get them here. That would be great if you could do that. Steve Mann said, we appreciate you moving for us here in the States. You're welcome. You're welcome. I would say that maybe 90% of my business that I do is with folks in the United States and in Canada. That's where the bulk of my clients are. Although I do work with folks in Israel, Switzerland, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand, lots of places where I work with people. But yeah, most folks are in the United States. So I have absolutely no problem kind of moving my show back and forth to make sure that you guys are looked after. All right, so let's get into this. Blank Slate, brand new piece of music. Mike Neighbors just posted in the Studio and Support group. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, let's go over to... Oh, hang on a second. I need to press that button first. Alrighty, so as I said, blank piece of paper. And here we are. What I have on the screen right now is basically just a single track, which I call drum loops. And this is kind of often how I like to start when I'm just, kind of goofing around with some ideas. This is kind of where I like to start. I like to start with just a drum loop because I actually prefer that to using a metronome. Metronomes are great, but they're a little bit sterile. They're a little bit beep, boom, 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 and you can change the sounds and stuff like that. And I've done that before. I have, back in my Cubase days, I worked out back then how you could customize the sound of the metronome. And I customized it so that beat 1 was a burp, and then you had 3 different types of fart for the remaining 4 beats in the bar. It's just one of those things that I did to amuse myself. All right, so let's have a look. Over here, I have my Loop Loft library, and I have a whole bunch of different styles here, including these Matt Chamberlain drum loops here. Matt Chamberlain is an awesome drummer. I have heard his work with a lot of different artists, and he has such a broad range of styles that he plays in. I thought maybe we might have a listen to some of these and see if we can find something that we like. But I have pretty much every drum loop that Loop Loft come up with, which I think a couple of years ago you could even buy the whole thing as a bundle. And it was worth, I think, $1,200, and I got it for $100. They were doing a sale, a totally insane sale, and I thought I must get this for $100. So I did, and it's everything drums that they do. And then I picked up the Matt Chamberlain library when that came out. So Matt Chamberlain library is a little bit kind of different, but you've got all sorts of different loops in different styles here. So we might start with something, fairly straight ahead. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. This one here, the Pete and Potatoes Library, amusingly named. Nice little spoonerism. Has some pretty good grooves in it, like this one here. Nice and straightforward. With a little kind of semi-drum fill at the end. So maybe we could have this first. Why not? Let's get that in there. And let's see. Do I need to time stretch this? It is time stretched. And the file tempo is even written to it. Awesome! So, let's turn that down because that is awfully loud. Yeah, I like that. So that would be like the first one, and then I could go and grab maybe this one. What's this one like? Nice. It's got a little kind of fill going on to it as well. And that has as well. Yeah, let's have this one follow it up. So let's put this one in here. Hang on a second. Let me just make sure that's lined up nicely. And we'll pull this down by 6 dB as well. And let's put that together. Yeah, I quite like that. It's nice and straight ahead. No frills. No spills. Hang on a second. So let's see. What do you guys think of that? Let's see. Sounds interesting. Like a talk show / tutorial show. Yes, that's exactly what I am about. Waveform Lab. That's right. And Mike Neighbour's being very nice. He says, Johnny's show is great. You'll learn stuff here. Steeman says, Pretenders beat. Yeah, it kind of is, isn't it? Waveform says, I hear a Steely Dan type of riff in my head to that beat. Yeah, I listen to a lot of Steely Dan. They had a massive impact upon me in the late 70s and into the early 80s, kind of their kind of peak, what a lot of people call their peak period. And particularly the Asia album made a massive impact upon me as a musician, as a songwriter, as a mix engineer. It's kind of like, that's kind of the, if I have an aspiration as to what I want my mixes to sound like, it's those records. Asia was mixed by Elliot Shiner, and it is a glorious piece of engineering, and they're recorded by Roger Nichols. And the title track obviously features Wayne Shorter and Steve Gadd, and you can't get better than that. I would love to have them on my records, but that's never going to happen, unless I get samples, of course. But yeah, so Steely Dan had a massive impact upon me. We may kind of go down that route, but maybe not. Bobby says, would switch them around, but that's me. Oh, yeah, maybe. I'm kind of thinking that I kind of want, let's see. I kind of want the symbol to be there, as kind of like it's the start of the song, kind of like the intro. And all of this 8 bars might just be the intro. I haven't really decided yet. So what we might do there is bring this one back again. So why don't we do that? Why don't we go and put that one in there, and then this one we'll put in there, and yeah, we'll kind of keep it like that right now. So maybe this is where the verse will start here. So yeah, let's loop this little section here, because this is why it's kind of going to be the meat and veg. Maybe I want to go from here. Yeah, I quite like that. So if we were to regard these first 8 bars as my intro, and then this is kind of like the beginning of the verse. So we want to get the main groove going. So let's move that back over there. And we'll just work on this kind of intro idea right now. So what I want to do is I probably want to go and create an audio track, which we won't call drum loops. We'll call this Rhodes, because I do actually have a Fender Rhodes sound available, and we'll make this kind of that color. I don't know what color. That's kind of a peachy color. And we'll have this as input, right? Because that's where the Rhodes is. There we go. So we got some nice Fender Rhodes there. Let's loop that section. Tell you what this kind of reminds me of. It's got to be that Michael Jackson song. You know the one I'm talking about. That's kind of what this groove reminds me of, which I think was Ricky Lawson that played that groove, if memory serves, on that particular record. All right, what are we going to do? What key are we going to be in? That's kind of the next question, really, is what key we're going to be in. So let's decide that. What key are we going to be in? What key are we going to be in? Stevie Wonder, Superstition. Yeah, that's a nice little idea. Dave Vignola from Home Recording Made Easy is here. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. He says, just wanted to drop in and say hi. Well, I appreciate that. And Waveform Lab says he's a big Dan fan. Yeah, me too. I saw Billie Jean. That's the name of the song. Thank you very much. Yes. It does kind of sound like that, doesn't it? And I think it was Ricky Lawson on that tune. Yeah, which was G minor. It's kind of like this G minor, A minor, B flat kind of thing going on in that song. We're not going to do that. C sharp. Just Bob wants us to do something in C sharp. Okay. That's going to be fun. There we go. There's kind of C sharp. Bobby Booth says F minor. Yeah, I kind of dig that. I kind of dig that F minor kind of thing. G minor is pretty cool though. Yeah, because you can kind of do that kind of C over E kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, kind of something like that. Michael Johnson says, can you play something that is 2 minor chords and only use the first 5 of that key and make it sound good? Okay, yes. All right. Let's do the 2 minor chords song challenge that I set everybody months and months ago. Why not? Why not? Let's do. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. Waveform Lab has picked the key. We're going to be in G minor. And we're going to use the chord of G minor and C minor. And that's all we're going to use. So we'll vamp around here for a bit. And then we'll vamp around here for a bit. And I'm only allowed to use those first 5 notes of the G minor scale for the G chord. And then the C minor chord. I can only use those 5 notes. But I can use them in any range or register I want, so long as they fit the song. All right, let's do that. Let's go back to Studio One. Yeah, let's do that. There we go. All right, let's go back and let's kind of vamp in G minor for a bit and see what we can come up with our little drum loop here. Quite like that. I quite like that kind of something like that. I quite like that as a little groove. So let's go get our little kind of pre-count going in here. We went pre-count, not pre-roll. Okay. Let's put this in. Let's put this in. There we go. Let's see what that was like. Alrighty, I like that. So let's build this up a little bit more. Before we go into the next bit, which will be kind of like the verse. So this is kind of like our little intro. I guess I could have the arranger track open, and I could probably put in intro and then verse and all of that kind of thing. I'll do that afterwards. So this is kind of like going to be our intro. We'll keep the arranger track open just now. This will be like our little intro, and then verse. These 8 bars here will be our verse, and then we'll do the next bit where we go on to the C minor chord. And this actually will I can just duplicate this because this will be good for the verse as well. And that way I don't have to play it again. Hooray! All right, so now we want some virtual instruments. Because I want a bass. Now, I could play my own bass, which is behind me here, but it is, as I say, 11 o'clock at night, and we have curfew and all of that. Well, it's not really a curfew, but after 11 o'clock, yeah, people start to get uppity, and when my neighbors get uppity, that's bad for my business, because it means I can't work at night. And I don't want the police around here. That would not be very good. So, we will use virtual instruments instead. So we'll get a Presence XT in here. And we'll go to bass, and we use a contemporary bass, I think. We use this guy. Why not? I'll stop recording that. Alrighty, let's try and figure out what we're going to do for a bass part. Now, as you can tell there, kind of with what I'm doing on the bass here and the left hand of the Fender Rhodes, they are fighting each other a little bit, but that's okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to thin out the Fender Rhodes so that those low notes don't cause so much of a problem. We'll do that a little bit later on, and that will make way for this bass. I could, of course, just go and record that again, taking out the low end. That wouldn't be a problem because I kind of know what I'm doing. I'm kind of, whoops. And pretty much most of the time, this is what I would do, is I kind of get my idea from my vamp, I put it in here, and then once I start filling it out, I will go and I'll redo the keyboard part to make it a little bit more what I would have the keyboard player actually do in the final production, rather than kind of like a roughed out track. So at the moment, what we have is a roughed out track, and so we'll add this bass part in, and then I'll maybe go and redo the piano part. All right, so what do you guys think so far? Steve says, I would say use the G minor for the main body of the song and the C minor for the breaks. Yes, absolutely. Michael Johnson says, I want to update or redo what I sent you for that challenge, but if you want to play that MP3 I sent, feel free. Okay, thank you, Michael. I will. Okay, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. If you want to kind of go back and revisit and update, that's fine. You go ahead and do that, and then just send me what you have. And then actually, that might not be a bad idea, because then I can listen to both of what you've got, and I can compare and contrast, and then I can give you some more detailed feedback based on that. So if that helps you, Michael, then we can certainly do that. Just Bob says, very cool. Okay, cool. Let's see. Michael Johnson said, oh, I've read that bit already. Beck chords. Oh, Jeff Beck. If only I could play stuff like that, man. Seriously. I think he has Jason Rebello in his band. Jason is an awesome piano player, and he's a really, really nice guy as well. I've met him a few times. Dwayne is here. Hello, mate. He says, I'm enjoying what you're doing. Excellent. All right, so let's go and stick in this bass part, and then we'll go and replace the keyboard vamp. And then we'll move on to the next bit. Because a lot of what I do here is I kind of like do a bit, and then I duplicate, and then I do another bit, and then I duplicate, and then I start shifting things around until the arrangement falls into place. So that's kind of how I work. And that means I'm actually only doing things once, twice at the most. And it works really, 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 really well for me. So that is what we shall now do. So let's go back to Studio One. And let's go and stick in this bass part, and we'll kind of ignore the fact that it's going to kind of bump into the left hand of the Fender Rhodes right now, and we'll be okay with it. So let's take off the loop, and let's go and hit our record button, and I'll play it down here. I'm going to keep it actually pretty simple, so that it's not kind of getting in the way too much. Perfecto, I think. Yes, absolutely perfecto. That's great. I like that. Let's duplicate. And then let's go back and delete. And let's go back over here. And we'll get this. We'll get this kind of thing going, and I'll kind of be very, very spare about my left hand. I goofed. I don't do that very often, but there we go. I did it again. Same mistake. How can the guy make the same mistake twice? Oh, I clicked my input as well. How did I do that? I don't know. All right, here we go. Do it right this time. Alrighty, lovely. Aye, marvellous. There you go. A bit of West Yorkshire accent there. Let's duplicate that. And, oh, I should crossfade because I think there might be a little click there. Alright, let's play it. Alrighty, and it's a little rough around the edges. It's not necessarily the most in time I've ever played in my entire life, but there we go. We've kind of got the rough idea of what we want to do. Alright, so the next bit is kind of this versey bit, which we've already got because the intro is the same, and that's cool. So the next bit, let's see. I might just take both of these, and duplicate those as well. And that sets us up for the next little bit over here. And it means I've got something to play along to. Now, drum fills and that kind of thing, I'll put those in kind of much later down the line. So when we're kind of in the finishing stretch of doing this, so kind of once we've got other instruments in there, guitars, horns, whatever we're going to put in, we will then go back and we'll do drum fills so that it's a little bit more like the drummer is, in this case, a little bit more interactive with the rest of the arrangement. So that's what we'll do. But we'll keep it pretty simple just now because it's just a guide track. And it'll become much more interesting later down the line. So if you guys are kind of interested in me carrying this on over the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, if you guys are interested in that, then please do let me know. And if that's something you'd like me to do is to carry on with this next week, then we will definitely carry on with it next week. I'm happy to do that because this could be fun. And it's not going to be a vocal tune, it's going to be an instrumental tune. For the reasons that I outlined earlier, is that I can't really be singing at the top of my lungs at midnight because A, I'd wake up my kids, B, I'd wake up my wife. That's really, really bad because she's a midwife and needs her sleep, and neighbors will be unamused. So, yeah, so let's go and do the next bit. So we'll go back to the Rhodes track and let's see what you guys are saying about this so far. Hopefully you guys are finding this useful. No one plays like Jeff Beck except for Jeff Beck. Absolutely. You're absolutely right there. Totally. We got 16 people watching, which is pretty cool, considering. Can you quantize those piano chords? Yes, I can, and I will probably likely do that later. I'm not gonna be kind of doing quantizing or anything yet, unless I do something really, really horrendously and horrifically out of time. I'm kind of gonna leave it for now and come back to it later when I'm in the more kind of, I kind of compartmentalize what I do. So kind of this for me is just tracking. I'm getting scratch tracks laid down, and then once I've done all the scratch track and the whole arrangement is fleshed out, then I'll go back and I'll kind of tidy up things like, yeah, there's some timing issues with that Fender Rhodes part, or there's some tidying up needing done on a guitar part or whatever, and I'll do all of that in what I call my editing phase. And then after editing, then we'll kind of polish up the arrangement a bit, do any duplication that we need to do, drop in any additional bits of production. So maybe we would have, I don't know, I'm speculating here, but maybe further down the line we'll have things like shakers and congas and stuff like, you know, extra kind of production stuff, and maybe even a triangle or a cowbell or something like that. You know, if we have those kind of elements in the song, then you know, we'll bring those in. Those would kind of like be the little finishing touches, the little pieces of production icing on the cake, and then we'll get to mixing it. So if you guys are happy with me going on with this, Dwayne says I'm in for it, and James Geo is here. Hi, James. He says he's up for it. Michael Johnson is up for it, and Just Bob says this is great. Glad to hear it. Steve Mann says I can hear some trumpet and sax in this. More than likely I can too, and more than likely that's exactly what we're going to get, I would think. Needs a sax in the background. Yep, I think we're probably going to have a full-on horn section going on here. We might even make this like a contemporary big band thing. Why the heck not? I've done that kind of stuff before. So yeah, why not? A contemporary big band tune. That could be quite fun. Let's kind of see where it takes us before before we get too carried away. But I like kind of what we've got so far. It's a little bit dark, a little bit brooding. So this whole kind of little motif here, I'm probably going to carry that over into the C minor, maybe kind of change some of the harmony a little bit. Yeah, maybe something like that. would go back. So I'm kind of almost keeping the same kind of thing. I'm just slightly adjusting it. So we're going to like a C minor 7/3 inversion, and then going to like a D minor, and then E flat major 7, all over that kind of C bass. So it's keeping in that C minor kind of idea that Michael was on about. And this is totally where you can be very creative with this whole idea of the 2 minor chords thing. You don't have to strictly stay to, I'm going to have a G minor chord and only a C minor chord. You know, kind of, yeah, you can do that. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm not saying that that's wrong. But, you know, you can be a little bit creative, which is what we've done here, you know. Or, you know, that's all kind of still in keeping with a G minor chord. You know, all of those notes are directly from the G Dorian mode. You know, that kind of thing. And then I'll just shift that up to chord 4, the C minor. Yeah, that sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. And then we'll go back down. And that'll be kind of like our little 2-chord vamp. And so, because we've only got 2 chords, there are things we need to do to keep it interesting. So, a lot of the secret of doing something where you are limiting yourself to just 2 chords is you have to get a little bit creative with your production and a little bit creative with your arrangement. How you do your arranging and your production is going to be what keeps the listener engaged. Because if the chords are kind of static, where you've only got 2 chords, so there's not a lot of harmonic movement going on, like you might have in other styles or in other songs, like, you know, oftentimes my songs can have like 30 chords in them. And this has only got 2, so I can't rely upon the harmonic motion and the harmonic movement to provide contrast. So I have to find contrast in other ways. And so pretty much the way I think we're going to find contrast here is how we handle the instrumentation, how we handle the arranging, how we handle the bits of ear candy. Ear candies. Really, really important to how you make your production sound awesome is ear candy. The little bits and pieces here, a little bit over here on the left, a little bit over here on the right, a little bit of something that's kind of saturated in reverb, maybe a little something that only crops up once and it pans from right to left or something like that. Those are the kind of things that keep the listener engaged. Or a little piece of melody that just keeps cropping up over and over again. And that kind of hooks, that's something the listener can hook themselves onto. And, you know, oh, that's something that just keeps coming up. And hopefully that's something, that's a little piece of motif, a little piece of melodic motif that they end up going away singing or humming to themselves. And when that happens, success. Your song is successful. If you have somebody going away singing, even if it's not the main melody, even if it's not the lyrics of your song and the main melody of your song, but if they find themselves hooked in to a little horn motif or a little guitar lick, and they're singing that for days afterwards, after they first heard the song, you have successfully made a successful song. There, I used successful twice in the same sentence, which is not great grammar, but hey. Let's see. Waveform Lab says, I'd love to see this evolve. I'm from the old days of tape where corrections and tightening up weren't really available and fixing it in the mix wasn't acceptable. I'm not certainly advocating fixing anything in the mix because I don't do that either. I agree with you there. Fixing it in the mix, to me, is still not acceptable. Whatever era you come from. I too come from the era of tape. That's where I got my start. I started in studios on Studer tape machines and those kind of things, with big, chunky 24-track tape. And we had to, every one of us in the studio, whatever our role was, had to lovingly look after the tapes, lovingly look after the tape machine. So, we had to do all of that. And so, I got my start there. And really, if you wanted to do anything, if you wanted to join any takes together, you had to splice. You had to literally cut the tape with a blade and then tape them together with a particular type of tape that you wouldn't hear the join. That's where the skill was. You wouldn't hear the join in the tape. For example, if you listen to songs off of the Beatles' White Album, or the Abbey Road album, in fact, is a better example. There are songs on that record where the vocal is comped effectively from, it's like a couple of lines or more, maybe a verse from this take, chorus from this take, second verse from another take. They did some songs on the Abbey Road record where I think they did 35 takes of one of the songs on that record, and they ended up comping the vocal from, I think they used 3 different takes. I think they used take 9, take 22, and the final one, take 35. I'm trying to think of what the song was, what the song was called, where they did that. But yeah, so I totally understand where you're coming from. And so, yeah, quantizing, that's not, for me, that's not really a fixing it in the mix kind of thing. That's kind of, hey, that's just the kind of way it is with modern digital technology. You can do that. Not that I'm advocating doing that on everything. I don't think you need to quantize everything. I think there are some things that are just best left as they are. So, anyway, that's kind of where I am thinking of that. Michael Johnson says, one of the first songs I learned to play with both left and right hand was Axel F. Yeah, that's a good tune. Let's see. Yeah, Michael, I'm definitely interested in playing both of your versions of your 2-chord tune. Absolutely. So please do send me the other one, and we can definitely, if you're up for it, we can do a show where we compare the two versions, and we can see what people think. Yes, I know you can hear my notifications coming through the stream. There's nothing I can do about that. Don't let it bother you too terribly much. Let's see. An alternative jazz feel is what I get. Yeah, I'm absolutely in agreement with that, Steve. I think that's kind of the direction it's kind of going to go in. Kind of a kind of jazz rock kind of vibe to it. Maybe with some virtual guitars, and certainly a virtual horn section. But yeah, it could kind of go down the route of a contemporary big band thing. I've played contemporary big band tunes that are a little bit like this, actually. Let's see. Steve says, how do you feel about fills acting as hooks in the songs? You mean drum fills? Yeah, they certainly work. A good example of that would be Phil Collins's In the Air Tonight. The iconic drum fill from that record. Everybody knows that drum fill. And it is just a drum fill. It was never intended to be a hook of the song. It's just a drum fill that takes you into the chorus. And it works. It works really, really well. Actually, a little bit too well, in my opinion. And of course, Phil does like several variations on that drum fill throughout that song. And it keeps that whole idea coming back into your mind as the song goes through. Dick Creek Audio is here. He says, splicing has its challenges. It certainly does. But live punching over important parts and getting out in time, those are the real... Yeah, absolutely. I have done my fair share of splicing, and I have my fair share of wounds on various parts of my fingers from splicing. You probably can't really see this, but I have a cut that runs from the top of my thumb here down to almost where the joint is here, that almost went all the way through to the other side. And I got that when I was maybe, would have been about 15. And I was working in the studio that my parents did a lot of session work at that studio. And I was working there, and I was just like, yeah, I'll help you splice the tapes. Absolutely. I'd love to learn how to splice tapes. So they got me splicing tapes. And yeah, I chopped a chunk of my thumb out and had to have stitches. It was hilarious fun. Any instrument on the fill question? Yes, fills can definitely be hooks. Let me think of a song that I know of where you have that really works. Steely Dan's The Fez, if you know that tune. It's one of the few songs. That song is one of the few songs where Becker and Fagan share composer credit with somebody else outside of the band. There are two songs where that happens. One is a song where the melody was so similar to a Keith Jarrett piece that Keith successfully sued Becker and Fagan. And in return for the successful suit, he got composer credit on this particular song. So they had to split the royalties with Keith on that particular song. In the case of the Fez, Paul Griffin, the session keyboard player, piano player, he came up with this glorious little melody that went in between each of the, I don't think you can call it verses, because that song really is just a groove song, and it has like maybe a couple of lines of lyrics, and that's about all there is to that song. And it is just totally a groove song. And Paul came up with this really, really catchy little melody. And it was just to fill in the space. That's all it was. And Donald liked the melody so much that I think later through the song he doubled it on a synthesizer that kind of had a string kind of thing on it, and made much more of that melody. Paul said, "That's wonderful, but I kind of came up with that melody, and it's kind of integral to the song. So how about you give me, composer credit on the song?" And so they did. And so that piece of melody was written by Paul, and it's so integral to that song. And it really was just intended just to fill out this little gap, this little 4-bar gap. That's all it was. So yes, definitely fills on any instruments can definitely be hooks, for sure. Let's see. Chris says, "Hope you don't own a chainsaw." I don't. Mike Neighbor has to go. Bye-bye, mate. Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. And Bobby Booth says, "See you guys later. This stuff is over my head." Bobby, really? All we're doing is just putting down tracks for a song. That's really all there is to it. I'm not doing anything crazy. The craziness will come when we actually get into mixing this thing. And that's really where you are definitely going to be of great help in the chat. Because, we'll make this interactive. We'll make this whole thing interactive. Because you guys have already suggested, let's do it in G minor. And you suggested a few other things. And Mike Johnson said, "Hey, let's do the 2-chord thing." So that's kind of what we're doing. Those are your ideas. So I'm pretty sure, Bobby, when we get to mixing this thing, that your ideas will be just as important. So as anybody else's, and you've always got something to say. Even at this point when we're just coming up with the song. I mean, you're a musician. You have musical instincts. You've definitely got stuff that you can contribute. So, please don't feel that you can't contribute, because you can. You absolutely can, Bobby. For sure. All right, so it is midnight here. This is when we would normally start the show. So I'm happy to carry on for a wee bit if you guys are up for it. At least we could get the next little bit done on the Fender Rhodes, the scratch track there. And then maybe we'll call it a night. So why don't we do that? Let's go back to Studio One. And let's do this next bit of Fender Rhodes, and then we'll wrap up for the week, and we'll come back and we'll revisit this next week. So I am going to very quickly do something I should have done at the start, which is save. And yes, to that, because I want these to be saved in the song. All right, so let's see. Yeah, I kind of like that for this next bit. Yeah, let's do that. At that point. There we go. And we'll turn this down just a little bit, not that much. There we go. I'll crossfade that, and we'll go and we'll do the bass. Why don't we do the bass part as well? Why not? Let's see what we're going to do. Let's just give this a little practice first. Yeah, something like that. Why not? Yeah, there we go. Nicey, nicey, smashy, and nicey. All right, so let's go back to the beginning of this verse, and let's review. And we'll play these two sections together, see how well they come out. All right, there we go. There we have it, folks. I hope you have found this interesting and useful and helpful in basically seeing how I work, a little bit of how I work. And we can develop this as we go over the next couple of weeks. So if you guys are up for that, then we will do that. Let's see. Steve Mann says, now I'm going to have to put on the face. Yes. Steve says, I think I'm hearing the hook in the horns on this one. Yeah, maybe. We'll kind of see. I'm going to kind of mull this one over the course of the next few days, and maybe have a little tinker and a little experiment. And then we'll do this again next week, and it should be pretty cool. Jonny Guy, but on his streams, is doing mixing weeks throughout the course of this month. So I kind of thought, why don't we just write a song for a month, or however long it takes us to do it. I mean, we're doing this weekly rather than daily. Jonny does his every day. I'm doing this every week. So it may well be that over the course of this month, whilst Jonny's doing his mixing, we will make this song, and we'll see how it ends up. We may end up abandoning it after the end of the month. Who knows? We'll have to see how it goes. Hopefully not. Hopefully this will work very, very nicely. Just Bob says, great show. Thank you very much. Looking forward to next Sunday. Yes, me too. I'm really quite excited by this now. Bobby says, think the bass needs a fill or two. Yes, it probably will get some spicy little fills, seeing as I'm a bass player. At the moment, I am just putting down the guide rough tracks, to be honest, at this point. I'm not too fussed about frills and that kind of thing yet. They will come. The frills and things like that, they will come. But usually what happens is I put down guide parts, a little bit rough around the edges, maybe. I'm not too fussed about that at this stage. And then once we've got the arrangement fleshed out at least a little bit, I'll go back and I will kind of put in some fills and I will tidy up a little bit of the performances until we end up with something that just sounds really, really polished and really, really cool. At the moment, it doesn't sound polished, and at the moment, it kind of does sound cool, but it certainly doesn't sound polished. But, you know, over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, it will definitely sound a lot more polished. And we'll just see how far we get. You know, hopefully, at the end of the month, we'll have a cool little tune. And then you guys can suggest a title for it when we get to that point. And we'll see how far we get. Alrighty. Yes, Bobby, I appreciate that. Your comments are very, very important. However basic you think they might be, that's okay. That's cool. And the other thing is, you're helping me make sure I cover the basics. I wouldn't want to leave any stone unturned. You know, that's the thing about being an educator, is you have to make sure that you have to do something that we call differentiation. It's a posh word, but you know, essentially what differentiation means is it means that you have to make sure that what you teach serves the different ability needs across the whole of your class, if we were to call this a class and you were in my class. You know, because there are some people here who are flat out beginners in terms of songwriting and arranging, and there are some folks that have got a little bit more experience, and then there are some folks here who have a lot of experience with it. On the other side of that, there are folks in here who have a lot of experience of mixing, and there are some that don't have any. You know, and so what I'm going to try and do with this little project here is create something that teaches something to everybody, at least a wee bit. You know, so if you're beginners, we'll make sure we're covering the basics. And if you're intermediates, we'll make sure we're covering those kind of concepts. And then if you're on the advanced scale of things from a songwriting and arranging perspective, then definitely when we get to the ear candy phase, you are going to be so important, because you'll be suggesting lots of very, very cool things that we can put in. Because I have lots of sounds, not necessarily on this guy. The sounds on this are a bit crap, to be really honest. But we've got all the stuff from Presence XT, we've got Mai Tai, and we've got Mojito. We can do all sorts of fun things with those. So, and we've got the Persona Symphonic Orchestra as well. So if we really want to go nuts, we could have a big band plus string orchestra as well, and maybe the choir. We'll chuck in the choir as well. We can do anything. We can do whatever we want. All right, so there we go. We are at 10 past the hour. We've got 15 people still here. If you guys got any questions about what we're doing right now, then please do post them in the chat, and I'll hang around for another 5 minutes, and then we will wrap this up. But this has been fun. This has been really, really fun. And you guys have provided some really good ideas, and we've ended up with quite a cool little groove. Let's see. Please no cowbells. It's kind of begging for one, though, isn't it? Don't you think? No, I'm only kidding. I'm not a massive cowbell fan, so we don't have to have one. Steve Mann says it has potential. I think it does. I think it's got potential to go places. And he also says, we all learn a lot from Jonny Guy and from me. Well, that's nice to know. Thank you. And we appreciate you guys. Well, that's great to know. Jonny and I work very hard at putting out the best kind of content that we can. And, you know, our audience is maybe a little on the small side, but hopefully with your help, we can grow our audiences and have a much wider sphere of influence. That would be great if we could get to that point. Alrighty, I don't see any questions coming in particularly, but I am making a mental note of some of the things you guys are talking about for next week. You know, some of the things, Steve, that you said about hooks, I've got that definitely registered in my head. And making sure that we cover the basics. Absolutely. Bobby's comment there is really, really important. So next week we will flesh this out a little bit more, and we will start to make the rhythm section arrangement. We'll get the rhythm section arrangement together next week. And then it'll be a case of, once we've got the rhythm section fleshed out, at least with scratch tracks, then we can start to add some of the other things like the horns and that kind of stuff. And then we can go back and tidy up some of the rhythm section stuff, make sure the rhythm section stuff is interacting nicely with the horn section elements and those other ear candy things that we'll add. And then we'll have a session where all we do is just kind of like spit and polish and spit and polish and spit and polish to tighten this arrangement up. And then we'll be into mixing. And that'll be fun. And then we can master this maybe as well. That could be quite fun to do. Maybe once we've got past the 4 weeks of writing and arranging and recording, we could then do a session where we just mix it. And then we could do a session where we just master it. That could be quite cool as well. A xylophone. Oh, Bobby, you've actually got me thinking there. Not necessarily a xylophone, but maybe a marimba. You know what a marimba is? It's kind of, it's a lower pitched xylophone. It's kind of like the alto xylophone, I guess. It's a beautiful instrument. I love the marimba, and there's a pretty good marimba sample that is in presence. So we could certainly try and find a wee spot where we could put that in. See how it works. It may work, it may not. But yeah, we can definitely try stuff like that. Good one. Appreciate it. All right, folks. I am going to bid you all a very good night once I've got that button pressed. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. And I'll be back on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified with Jonny over on his channel. And I apologize, no video was put up this week. I have not been very well this week, so I have been laid up in bed, but I dragged myself out of bed to do the show tonight. And so hopefully I am feeling a little bit better. So hopefully come, you know, kind of like the Thursday is when I tend to make my videos. Kind of when we get to Thursday, I will have another video for you. I've got a little list of videos that I'm going to make. And feel free, email me any suggestions for videos that you would like to see on any particular Studio One issue or a Studio One feature you would like me to demonstrate. Then, you know, kind of, I just did a 3-video series on the splitter function. So if you've got another function that you would like me to do a video on, drop me an email, johnny@johnnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and I will add it to the list, and I'm working my way down the list. And so your video suggestion will definitely get made. Okay? So if you're happy with that, we'll do it. All right. Good night, everybody, and I will see you on Wednesday. Good night. Good night, everybody. Thanks, Dwayne, for letting me know. Appreciate it.